You don't come across old-fashioned values like that anymore, friends. And for good reason. There's no money in it! Hello? Memo to
Heihachi Mishima.
We're not a charity! So I don't want to hear another... Where's...
Heihachi Mishima.
We'll see him next month at the...
Tekken World Tour.
He always goes to that.
Now, let's get down to the business of sucking every loose penny out of Mr. and Mrs. Average Knucklehead.
This DLC was promising, blurry, mind-numbing, insufferable, and infuriatingly blinding. No, I don't intend to do a full in-depth breakdown of the extra DLC endings. But to give you my summary, Jun Kazama leaves a few questions, but it's great for her fandom. The same can be said for Leo's fandom, and it's absolutely wonderful that they try to add more context to Leo's father. Additionally, Jun's journal context with Kazuya was not needed, yet they added this stuff because they care about their fandoms, and the group of people who try to stay invested in the actual material. On the topic of the Tekken material, let's learn about Reina's origin. Reina Mishima was a baby born into the Hachijo clan, but sadly she was too young to know that Heihachi Mishima committed genocide towards her whole clan. Why would Heihachi Mishima adopt Reina even though he already dealt with Kazumi, Kazuya, and massacred the rest of her community who all shared these supernatural abilities?
It is of no concern.
You also have to love that Heihachi committed to his Scandinavia plan, yet we realize that he not only used Nina and eventually Steve Fox, but why not use Reina by this point? I highly doubt Heihachi would forget destroying a clan and taking a baby that had familiar demonic traits that haunted both his love life and family life. As is, we have no clarity on Reina's previous family life. We know that Heihachi also left her at one point, since Heihachi was by himself by the time of Tekken 1. Additionally, special character intros in this game are not reliable, because interactions are inconsistent with the official Tekken material. With this in mind, this character is a headache and should feel emotional pain through learning that her actual parents were killed by this sympathetic hero.
Stories don't matter in fighting games.
You are right. Let's review the Tekken 8 DLC's story update. We begin our story 2 months before Tekken 8's narrative. Eddy Gordo reflects on his supposed actions with Kazuya Mishima. I don't dislike Lucky Chloe, but I think they retconned her out of the story if this timeline is supposed to be around the events of Tekken 7. Yoshimitsu being here isn't a red flag since he's already networked with Lydia Sobieska. I do disagree with the off-screen development because it makes these cutscenes feel more awkward than they should be. Now you know it isn't awkward. This entire section that is filled with the attention to detail and implemented feedback from my base story mode review. To organize this conversation, Lars and Eddy is small, but it still dignifies Eddy's motivation to seek redemption. This character review becomes expanded and explored when Eddy and Jin take their time to interact about their deeds and share how they can rise from their hardships. To me, this did not look like a scene where Tekken characters were just talking to each other for the sake of it. More so that these were people talking to one another with a purpose. And given the context of my Tekken 8 base story mode review, I really do appreciate the Tekken team for taking that consideration into account and implementing that feedback into this DLC here.
Você pode mudar também, Jin. Vamos lutar pelo futuro, como amigos.
Traveling to South America, we continue to see Eddy demonstrate his resolve and rescue the Tekken Force. Things are looking good here until this gesture of a Tekken character fails to end the conflict with Eddy and is incapable of using the jackbots to finish the remaining Tekken Force soldiers. Also, a bit of a nitpick, but it's funny how Jack 7 was able to adapt to King's fighting style in Tekken 7, and it forced King to use 2 separate movesets just to beat the one Jack bot. Meanwhile, in Tekken 8, you don't see any of the Jack 7 bots use their ability to adapt to a fighter's fighting style. Chapter 3 of this story is where we slowly start to decline a bit. I have no issue with Lydia saving New York. If anything, I assume that this time frame is between Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, given how this shows Kazuya's speech and New York's rampage. What I do find embarrassing is how a Mishima with godlike abilities was incapable of destroying New York completely. We arrive 3 days later with time remaining until Reina meets Jin Kazama. For some reason, Reina has the resources to gather information and expose confidential information from G-Corp, and also knows about Heihachi Mishima's letter that was showcased back in Lydia's Tekken 7 events. I'm getting ahead of myself. I guess Lydia was supposed to fight Reina for the Tekken tournament before moving on to the preliminaries. If not this, then I assume that Reina has Batman's eyesight and listening skills to see the Tekken monks observe Lydia Sobieska as a fighter from afar. That is very much the case, as the Tekken monks make their presence known to both of the characters. Why does Reina have surface level information about the Tekken monks' existence?
It is of no concern.
Weird how Reina says that they were looking for Heihachi Mishima when in reality he was stated dead by the public. This character is in her 40s and is about to spend the rest of her runtime trolling Jin and his friends during a World War event. Chapter 4 here has to take place after Chapter 5 in Tekken 8, right? From this point, Yoshi is present here, doesn't show up in the World Tournament, and would be representing his division if we were still in the tournament section of this narrative. Lydia battles Shiryu and Suzaku, so the latter two can confirm Lydia's durability. It's here where we get hit with a saddening, tiring reveal that would have been fine if it was non-canon. In this chapter, we learn that Mishima-style karate was occupied by two clans that both shared an ideological disagreement with how the technique should have been expressed, waging a conflict between the two clans until one was victorious. The lesser clan retreated to hone their interpretation away from society. By itself, this looks really cool. Sadly, this is a Tekken sandwich, and we realize that Jinpachi is no longer the founder of Mishima-style karate. Also realize this clan is capable of expressing electricity, which is fine, but the fact that Reina can produce electricity despite being a Hachijo member is a retcon. A tired one too, because Kazumi is also Hachijo blood with Mishima karate, yet she's incapable. Additionally, you have Lars exhibit electricity because he follows the old logic of Mishima blood, allowing you to resonate electricity when you generally fight. We finally see Heihachi Mishima return. Again. We see that one of Tekken 7's brighter story moments got sent to the Shadow Realm because stories don't matter in fighting games. Kazuya is a moronic villain, and a non-canon Heihachi would probably piss off the side of the Tekken fandom that play this game competitively the same way that these influencers regularly scam their consumer base. Also, you have to love how Heihachi's heart stopped before getting thrown into a volcano, but Tekken lore fans were put on this earth to be punished. Furthermore, if these monks are supposed to be out of touch with society, why would they be aware of the state of the world, in addition to Kazuya and Heihachi's anime fight? Why would they know about where and when they'd be here, specifically? Additionally, why not take advantage of the countless other times Heihachi or actual pure-hearted Mishimas were vulnerable just to confirm their whereabouts? Alright, you want me to be a nice guy for a moment? This is a cool what-if storyline for Heihachi's character since we're so used to seeing him be a lunatic villain. And unlike other moments where a change of heart is undeserved, I'd have an easier time buying an amnesia storyline than a
I love my wife, but I still trained my dad to hit my son
storyline. A good-hearted Heihachi facing his actual maniacal self in his mind is also a cool concept. Otherwise, Heihachi getting his memory back is presented like a deflating balloon. And if you are like me and you actually care about Heihachi being dead, you would go make some food then look at this screen right now. Meanwhile, back in Tekken 8's anime brawl, we see Saint Seiya Jin versus Power Ranger Villain Kazuya have their cosmic fights. From here, the rubble burns upon re-entry, at the same time Heihachi awaits to meet his task. This would be promising if it were all non-canon here. Otherwise, you realize Heihachi now has a power-up at a time where Jin and Kazuya have no enhancements and Reina's devil transformation is maturing because Kazuya didn't use his island-breaking spirit bomb that he could have probably abused during the World War fight because he doesn't have limits to his absurd moveset. With evil Heihachi back, why don't we let this power fantasy speak for itself because it's really hard to care or write the rest of the script for this clustercuss of a once promising DLC story. May Heihachi Mishima just burn everyone in this tired genjutsu of a narrative. Roll clips! If Heihachi Mishima doesn't kill any of these 3 Tekken characters here while showing this new chaotic he's a bad villain that can't finish his fights. Also, the Zaibatsu shouldn't exist anymore, so what assets does Heihachi have exactly? Probably another branch if we refer to the previous chapters, but who cares, right? Let's Heihachi Mishima take over this fictional wasteland and we have him on the graves of every Tekken character that's about as narratively useful as a on. What are my final thoughts on this story DLC? Eddy's portion felt like an apology to the Tekken 7 fans, proving that stories matter in fighting games. Additionally, the dialogue for Jin and Eddy felt like the Tekken team watched my previous video, which did express that Jin's arc would have been more believable if Tekken characters tied to him and society as a whole were both used to carefully challenge his character journey throughout the runtime. 7 out of 10. Lydia has an army of contents that you need to read before playing her section so that you can understand why she knows Yoshimitsu and Eddy. Otherwise, they do a passable job with Lydia's story to give you an idea of what her ideals are and why she's motivated to fight as a new Tekken character. 6 out of 10. Let me say that if Heihachi was actually dead, non-canon events like this wouldn't be so hair-pulling because it's so inconsequential to the actual narrative. Special intros like Heihachi talking to Kuma and Reina would be so wholesome to me from a presentation lens. More so for Kuma because he loves his father figure and would gladly do anything to see him again if he had actually died. An intro like this would mean something because as people, we can relate to losing family and friends that we care for. Also, it would be non-canon, but characterization still has to be respected, which means this would be an extra punch to the guts because we understand the relationship already. Sadly, from the enormous retcon to Tekken 7's narrative stakes, marketing, Heihachi's amnesia, Tekken monks that were too blinded by kindness and confused the Mishima universe even more, Heihachi's diaper dump of a power-up, and tired, rehearsed Tekken universe, tells me that cycles are content with staying the way that they are because liking this stuff is for idiots, you shouldn't criticize something to be better if you dislike it, and asking if it was forced on the Tekken team to renew Heihachi is irrelevant because...
Stories don't matter in fighting games.
With all that being said, thanks very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.